Well, hey, good morning, everybody. It's nice to be here, nice to get everybody here all together. As we're sitting here in Heritage Hall inside our brand new Hilmer Lodge Stadium, the first question I think I have for all of us is, how did we get here? You know, how did this point in time come about when you think about the early days, Hilmer in 1959 starting the relays? And I just wanted to pick your brains a little bit on it, and I'm going to go to John first for that one, because I think, John, you've been here probably the longest of anybody at Mount SAC, if you look at your time as a student, am I right?
Right. I was introduced actually at East LA College in the grandstands at the state championship. I ran the 800 meters, and Hilmer Lodge was there, and my high school coach said that this gentleman wants to talk to you, and I went and talked to him. He said, "Where are you planning on going?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go to probably Laverne College, right next to Bonita, or someplace like that." And he said, "Well, those are kind of expensive." He said, "Why don't you do this? Why don't you come over? I'll sign you up and get all your classes, and if those things don't work out, you can be at Mount SAC." I said, "That sounds pretty good." So that was my first introduction to Mount SAC, and then I was at Pepperdine in my last competition at the West Coast Relays, and Don came and saw me out there, and he said, "What are you doing next year, John?" I said, "I'm just finishing up my degree." He said, "Would you think about coming over and coaching with me?" And that was the best conversation I ever had.
1960.
That was 1964 when he saw me, and I started cross country 64, and then track on 65. Just when you came and introduced Tony Jordan to us.
Exactly.
But he ran for me the first year at cross country. You were here a year before that.
Yeah.
So he ran cross country my first year in 1963.
I redshirted. Yeah. I had a red shirt, not red shirt, but an athletic injury. So he talked me into going out and run 1 year more of cross country.
Don, when was your first year here at Mount SAC?
First year?
Yeah.
63.
63. Hilmer retired in
Fall
62.
of 63, the cross country season of 63, and I didn't feel I was really wanted by the team. I think they wanted, when I was hired, I think they wanted the assistant coach to be the head coach. I forgot his name right now, but a very small team left from Hilmer's year. John was part of it, and John cooperated well. Some of the athletes did not so well. So anyway, that was my first year. It was a challenge, but about 4 or 5 athletes stuck with us, and we went from there. So John was on that first team that I coached here. Yeah.
Wow. Rod, what was your first day at Mount SAC? Do you remember it?
August 1st, 1975.
I guess you remember it. I just graduated high school, by the way, a couple months before. So, all right. Anything stick out in your brain about that?
Well, I went to Cal Poly, played football at Cal Poly, so I knew about Mount SAC, but I never really knew the legacy and the heritage. And I always remember the track athletes were getting ready, and I said, "Where you guys going?" "We're going to Mount SAC Relays." And then I went to Sierra Vista High School in 1972 and brought my track team to the relays. And it was the cinder track, didn't have a weather track then. And I would bring them back on the World Class Day, it was either Saturday or Sunday, I forgot. And bring them back, and we sit up there on the top and just have them watch the meet and see. And I remember in 1974, I'm sitting up there, and I said, "Who in the hell organizes this damn thing?" And it was like 3 days then, maybe I think 3. And I know they had to come out and reline the track at a halftime, because the lines would disappear. And one time it rained a little bit, and everybody was out there with the blowers, getting the water out of lane 1. And I said, "Who in the hell organizes this thing?" Because just to put on a dual meet at Sierra Vista was an all-day project. Pick up the rocks off the trail and all that stuff. And then I didn't know the next year I found out.
Yeah, you had the notebook at that time then.
Well, I was coaching football. And I was hired as assistant football coach, assistant track coach. And Don might not remember this, but he gave me like 2 days after football was over. And we weren't that good then. We were not going to playoffs. And I got in his office, 50G, and he gave me a folder about that thick with a rubber band, big old rubber band around it. He said, "You're in charge of the volunteers."
Well, they gave you 2 whole days. What are you complaining about?
And I didn't know what day it was. I didn't know what. I had so many volunteers out there. Some of them didn't even work because I had so many guys. I wasn't going to be short.
I bet. Ernie, what was your first day? You've talked to me about that years ago.
Well, my first introduction to Mount SAC was about 1965. I was working at the youth authority out here, and I had a great kid named Tony Jordan. And he was from Oakland, California, and I'm from Oakland, so we sort of bonded a little bit. And so we had him, when he was getting parole, he came to stay with us for a little bit. Brought him over and introduced him to John and Don, and that was the story for that. And then I was at Altaloma High School, and I had a hurdler, and he was able to get into the Mount SAC Relays, and that was about 66. And the next year, 67, I went to Ontario High School, and we went to the CIF meet, and Don Ruh walked up to me and said, you know, we have an opening at Mount SAC football track, and you might be interested.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Mike, you remember your first day?
Note that Ernie and I were hired the same day in 1968. I don't know if you went in first or I went in first, but I don't know what that mattered on the seniority list. I can't remember.
I went in first.
That's right. You went first, and I went in.
So he's the notch above.
It was an extensive interview process.
Not a beauty contest. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Mike, any memories your first day, full-time hire?
Full-time hire, yeah. I worked, I came, I think, in summer of '96 or '7, and yourself and Brian Yokoyama were coaching, and I was a walk-on for a couple years before I was hired full-time. I think in '97 I became full-time.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I remember walking on and was not hired really soon enough to really do a lot of recruiting, so there was the athletes that were here, and then met you and Brian, and it all kind of started right there.
Well, I'm going to bore you guys with my first day. I remember it very clearly. I was here assistant for 5 years, and I was commuting from a high school, teaching in the day, and then coaching in the afternoon here, and helping with the events. And then, so the job opened up when you retired. I applied for it, and I got it, obviously. And I remember the very first day of that fall semester, sitting in the office, cross country. We finished that up in the morning, and you know, the kids are gone, cleared out, and 50G got a little quiet. And I'm sitting in my office, and I thought, what have I done? You know, same thing with that notebook, and Roos giving you 2 full days to get kind of, you know, get organized. I thought, oh my gosh, we got this big cross-country event coming in October, and the relays, and shoot. Anyway, it was a good day, though, looking back on it.
We went, Maureen and I were just talking about this. We all remember Dan Strum. Dan Strum went to an activity at UCLA.
Olympic Festival.
And you were working there. And he came back, and that's all I heard for weeks about this guy. He had so many good things to say about you. Now, I would disagree with him.
I don't blame you. Don't hold that against him, please. You know, we like him.
High recommendations because of his work out there. I remember that day too, yeah, very well, yeah.
Yeah, I think we'd be remiss too if we didn't mention Ron Copeland.
Yeah.
Because Ron Copeland was the reason that Rod came to Mount SAC and had that tragedy.
And I could give you the whole background on that, but this is not the place for it. But that particular job was held by Ron Copeland, football track.
I remember, I didn't know Ron Copeland. I knew of him. He was a great, great athlete. I didn't know him. But Ralph Craig is the reason that I'm here. He was a football coach, and I was at Sierra Vista, and I had a full-time job. I was making $8,000 a year. I thought I was rich. And Ralph Craig told me that they were going to look for a track coach and an assistant football coach. And I said, Ralph, I've been at Sierra Vista 2 years. I ain't ready for college, you know. And he kept bugging the hell out of me. And I filled out the application, and I remember at a passing league out here in old, the parking lot out the administration building, you see
Right.
a big old field. And I gave it to him, he turned it in, and I got a telegram. There was no cell phone, none of that stuff, you guys know that. And I got a telegram saying that you got an interview. I didn't do any research about Mount SAC. I knew a little bit, very little, just being at Cal Poly. And I think you guys were on the hiring committee, and Mal Eaton, he was on the hiring committee, and the dean was, I think, Linda Garrison. And I just answered the questions, you know, where I thought. And then I got a second interview. And I went to the high school principal at Sierra Vista High School, Paul Nishak. And I said, Paul, I got a second interview. I really don't want to leave Sierra Vista. We were building something. Our freshman football team went undefeated, and I said, man, I like it here. We're building something. And so then I had the second interview, and I got another telegram saying, you got 48 hours to decide if you're going to come to Mount SAC. We want to offer you the position. I was really nervous. I went back, I met with the football team, and to a man, they said, go ahead and go. Because if we go anywhere, we're going to Mount SAC. You know, they weren't Division I talents. And that's the thing that propelled me over here. But Ralph Craig, I was not applying. I couldn't fill Ron Copeland's shoes. I knew who Ron Copeland was. You know, I know what he did. I was nowhere near his ability. And I was really, you know, skeptical about them.
You did all right. You hung on. You made it.
Best decision I ever made, but it was a tough one.
Ron Copeland and Don Shy battled each other. Copeland finally won the state, I think, and Don was second in the state. But Southern Cal, I think Don won, but it was a really battle. And then we were so glad to get Ron here at Mount SAC coaching. He's an excellent, excellent athlete and coach both. Real quickly on how I got hired here, I don't know how I got hired, really. At Dominguez High School, but I went through the interview. I think there was about 4 of us, including Chuck Coker and some Fortune Gordine and so on. And I thought there was no chance in the world to get hired. And I think what really did it is after a long interview with the president, vice president, the dean, and John Aaron Beatty, they asked me, well, you didn't ask about your salary. And I said, I don't care what my salary is. I just want to be here at Mount SAC.
And they said hired.
And that's, I don't know whether that had any influence at all, but I took from $12,100 a month to, a year to $12,000. I took a $100 reduction coming to Mount SAC.
Was it a good choice?
It was a blessing. I tell you, my whole life, I loved it here. So.
Well, and now you're sitting here, however many years later in Heritage Hall. That was really, you know, your driving influence and idea has now come to fruition.
This group's just sitting here too.
There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. It takes a village, you know, to. I heard that somewhere.
Yeah, but it takes that visionary person.
Yeah.
Don had this in his mind, and he was able to push everybody to this point.
I've got an old drawing of your original plan for this on the hillside. You know, the road that came down from the old Relays office, that little section of dirt in effect. And I've got an old drawing of one of your original ideas. So yeah, you're right, it takes a lot of people, but it does take a visionary, and you were that guy. And so Mount SAC made a good decision to dock you $100 a year and bring you over to Mount SAC. You know, that's great.
You know, Ernie was my mentor when I first got here.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, I know. You know, I'm lucky I survived. I've been here now 48 years. But Don Ruh, he used to make me mad as hell. The month of April, I loved it and hated that month because that was the Relays month. And Don Ruh and John Norton, John at the clerk of the course, adding everybody and their mother to all these events. And I'm at the field manager and making sure we don't take the hurdles off too fast before we have another race. And Don, when he went to that 5th day of the relays, I said, I'm going to kill this guy.
That was the 4th day.
Remember that?
It was the 4th day, wasn't the 5th?
The 4th day. It was an extra day, I know that. And we were all dead after 3.
Well, we added.
And then Don had an all-comers meet starting on January 1st every weekend all the way up into February.
Guys, when I started here, my first year, I looked at the schedule the previous year. 38 weekends out of 52, Ruh had us doing something. 38 weekends, yeah. Don't look at me like that. You know,
They know.
5 acres, all-comers meets, youth day clinics, the cross-country and track and field season. Yeah, you kept us busy, Coach Ruh.
It was a nightmare. And I remember when I went into academic counseling, they gave me a 12-month contract and said, the first was a 10-month, then I got 11-month. When I got 11-month, I had to get out of one sport. So I said, I'm getting out of football. That was a mistake. I should have got out of track and field, cross country. Because I remember Ernie and I, we were at the finish line with their Chronomexes.
Yes.
Trying to finish. That's another thing, that damn cross country thing. God damn. I mean, excuse my French, but trying to figure out, oh, that guy's in the last race before. Well, don't time him. God almighty. Coming through that finish line.
October and April at Mount SAC are like no other place in the world, and I don't think a lot of the coaching world knows what October and April is at Mount SAC. And we all loved it because we all did it, but the job description really shouldn't be what your assignment is. It should say anything and everything.
Yep.
And that's what it really, because you didn't know what you were going to be doing from one 15 minutes to the next 15 minutes, and it could be completely different.
Yeah, I mean, now the technology.
But we've made up for it because of the great pay. Because I remember when I got hired.
Great pay.
He said, "Don't worry, you're getting $500." I said, $500 a month? That's not too bad. No, that's for the season.
Oh God, yeah. Then the relays dances we had, and oh my God, that was John's thing. We were done with the meet, and we went and invited all the athletes from all over the world to have a nice dance, and helicopters flying all over the place trying to end the dance, get out of the parking lot.
Never any issue with that, though. I heard that all went really well.
Oh,
and
smooth as glass.
Smooth as glass, huh? All right, maybe that's a topic for another conversation, but let me ask you guys something about the Mount SAC Relays, the Mount SAC Cross Country Invite. When you watch ESPN or something, you'll see an athlete, a football player, they'll say, what was your welcome to the NFL moment? And they usually talk about, a body-shattering hit or something where they go, oh my gosh, I'm not in college anymore, I'm in the NFL. Well, what was your guys' welcome to Mount SAC moment where you realized, okay, this isn't just another little track meet or another cross-country meet? Mine really quickly was, again, I was now full-time, and John had moved administration, Don was retired, and I'm in my office, 50G, the old office, and I'm looking out on the track, and I see some guys setting up hurdles, and I'm kind of ticked, because practice is over, and nobody should be on the track, and I'm going, gosh darn it, who the heck's out there? And so I walk out of the office, I'm gonna go shoo them off, and well, I'd seen Edmund Moses before at another time, late afternoon thing, but I'm walking out there, I'm getting closer, and I go, I know that guy, and getting familiar, it's Greg Foster. And I go, he looks at me and he just a little wave, and I go, have a good workout, and just return back, that. And then of course, contacting some of these people who are inducted into the Hall of Fame. You call up people who have Olympic medals, at home. They've stood on the podium at Olympic Games, and you tell them they've been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and they get emotional. They talk about how much it means to them, and that's when you really realize, wow, this is a special place, and we're lucky to be a part of it. But what about you guys? Did ever anything like that where you really realized this was something different?
I think we just John and I just grew up in it because, Hilmer had the vision for the relays, and Don, came in after him. And see, Hilmer was here for at least 2 years into my tenure. Hilmer didn't leave as the relays director till what, Don? 70?
Well, we gave him the title. He never came. He only came to relays and helped out that first year, 64, spring of 64. Then he got involved with his farm, with his ranch down south and the sprinkler system, so he really never spent much time up here, but that first year was really an education for me because he kind of set the tone on not paying athletes. I give an example of that. The big fight up there, well, not a fight, but an argument over there because Bud Winters from San Jose was supposed to get 20 sandwiches or something like that, and Hilmer only gave him 18 sandwiches. And that was their pay for coming here. That was their pay for them, but I remember that too. So then Hilmer told me once afterwards, we never pay anybody here. We treat all the athletes the same. Don't forget that. So we've done that all the way through, you know. If a club wants to pay him, that's something, but we don't pay him, we have it out. So I'm very proud of that fact that the athletes come here all as, you know, treated the same, and because they want to come here. So
I think the State Department needs to talk to Don because he's the one that solved the Taiwan Chinese problem. That one
true.
relays. Remember that, Don, when you had the Chinese and the China wouldn't participate because Taiwan was there?
Yeah, that's a story unto itself. Very proud of that story.
We do mention
You
that
wanna
here
hear
in
it?
the,
No.
in the hall a little bit, but yeah,
We're getting away from your question though. Anybody else want to say their first year?
they're welcome to Mount SAC moment.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it until later on. The relays put this college on the map. I don't care what anybody says. And we all travel around and we all wear Mount SAC stuff, and everybody knows about the relays. Europe, Asia, the country, everybody knows about the Mount SAC relays. You look at all those track meets, the Modesto relays, the Compton relays, the Fresno relays, all these meets have folded. But Mount SAC is still here, and it's a 2-year college. And doing it on nickels and dimes, trying to do it right.
Survived because of what Don Ruh just mentioned. We weren't into paying athletes, but we were providing them an opportunity to run on, at that time, even our center track was one of the best tracks in the world because Hilmer did a great job in, you know, getting the right consistency for the center. And then of course we got our all-weather track. But you know, you mentioned John at the clerk of the course. That's one thing those athletes used to like. They could come in at the 11th hour and say, I'd like to run. And we would find a spot for them. You know, they'd come to the relays office. We'd get the information to John, the clerk of the course. You remember the 4x4 relays we used to have? And I'm trying to think of the years. And it was in the 70s. Because it was after Edwin Moses had won that meet in LA, yeah. It was in the 70s. When we would have all those great 4x4 relays at the end of the meet. And we didn't know who was going to be in them. It was just like an all-comers thing. They come in and choose sides. And we provide a place for them to run.
You know, I want to give credit for Tom Tellez too on this too, because Tom Tellez was coaching in Fullerton my first year there. He kind of became my mentor. For some reason, we just connected with each other and got together and got along very well. And I remember we were waiting for the final vault in the one pole vault event in probably like 65 anyway, when he was still at Fullerton. And our vaulter made 14 feet or something like that. And got third place, we won the meet or something like that. You know, we just laughed and, you know, got along so well. but because Tom had Carl Lewis and that connection with the Santa Monica Track Club and Doug, it was.
You know, I was on my sabbatical, 1977, somewhere in there, 78, and I went to Pin Relays because I was hitting some of the major sports. So I went to Pin Relays. I didn't know anybody there. So I said, you know, I knew that Houston was here, and I knew Tom Tellez was there. So I knew Tom, and so I said, well, Tom was always by the pole vault. So I walked around the pole vault, and he was watching the pole vault, and he said, what are you doing here? And we talked a little bit. He said, you know, what are you doing tonight? And I said, well, nothing special. I was all by myself. He said, well, I've got this athlete I'm recruiting, and you want to come with us? And that'd be great. So I did, and the person he was recruiting that night was Carl Lewis.
Jeez, that's funny.
Carl was very generous with us with his time. He came to relays every year. And
I think for 9 years or something.
remember what
I think it was 9 years total that he came. Then even after he got through running, he'd come here and help us with youth days, you know.
and he still comes.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me, I think, so much of this event has been relationships. Relationships with the elite coaches and their athletes and the agents, relationships with our local coaches and the volunteer cadre that we have. You know, we've got a huge amount of people who jump in to help us on this. And I remember one time, I won't mention the athlete, but I was near Don in the Relays office, and there was someone looking for some pay, an athlete, and he said, I will pay you exactly what I'm paying myself. You know, and I thought, wow, that's kind of bold. And the guy just went, well, how do I argue with that? And he just walked away and competed, you know, and for the handshake, a pat on the back, and maybe an In-N-Out burger. But, you know, it's not, I don't think that these athletes aren't worth it. You know, they're business people, and we certainly understand and appreciate that. But this event has just been built on a whole different model, and maybe that's why, Rod, we've survived when some of the others haven't, because we've stayed with that model, and we do everything we can to give these amazing athletes a platform to shine, and that's our goal. I think it's worked out pretty well.
Well, I hope it doesn't change with TV, you know.
Well, now understand something. We're in a different time now. Now, we can, you know, go kicking and screaming, or we can fold into it and continue to build. You see, this relays concept, in '68, we had a good relay. We had several thousand. The next thing you know is up to, I don't know, what was our highest point? 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people at the relays.
Participants or spectators?
Participants.
Oh, yeah.
20,000 eventually at the cross country. But track and field is changing. And track and field is now a professional sport. Whether we want to agree with it or not, it's a professional sport. And so, but we're able to even to right now, to bridge that gap.
Well, you can do both. You know, I think the community out here, Walnut, California, nestled in this little valley, whatever you want to call it, they don't get to see the likes of University of this, University of Arkansas, University of Texas, University of this. I think that is great when they can come out here and see these top collegiate athletes, and then still you can have your TV day, 2 hours like this year. You can still have that, and the great high schools, you know.
We can walk and chew gum at the same time,
Yes,
you're saying.
exactly.
Yeah, I think we can.
And we've blended that in, and Doug has done a good job of that. And we just got to keep on, you know, doing both.
Another thing that brings them out here is In-N-Out hamburgers. You know, how In-N-Out hamburgers got involved. We had one of our relay committee members, Todd, well, I won't mention his name, but anyway, didn't pay his taxes, but he had a contact with somebody at In-N-Out. and he didn't pay a second. The day we were going to go in and try to ask for money, he was being arrested for not paying his taxes. So I went in alone, and luckily I got a hold of a guy that used to manage the store that Bob Seagren worked at. So Bob Seagren and that combo right there tied it up, and they said, yeah, we'll bring our wagon out there. So, and then Ernie, I think you enhanced on that too. So, but that was, I know the athletes loved the in and outs.
Oh yeah, the workers loved it too.
Well, you know what, guys? You talk about partners and relationships. Think about all the nice, great relationships we've had with the in and outs and the Gatorades and then the various shoe companies over the years. And you know, they come and go, but I don't think any relationship has ever ended negatively. It's just been, there was a time where we were good for them and they were good for us, and then we evolved and things always worked out. But those partners have been great for us. You know, they've just been wonderful, and we're fortunate to have them. And it's been nice, and it's not always easy to nurture those relationships.
No, you know, all of a sudden, marketing becomes a part of the whole process. And when we first started it sold itself. It was people in the community. You know, you remember how the gas company used to put the Relays flyer in the mailer that they mailed out when you got your monthly gas bill? You get a flyer for the Relays.
That wouldn't happen now.
No.
That wouldn't happen
But
now.
I'm saying,
Well, the restaurants around here used to put up the placemats, and it had the Mt. SAC Relays advertising. That was Ruh twisting arms, but you know, that doesn't happen much now.
The campus was involved. You know, the marketing, the business department, they were selling ads, and the campus was involved in hands-on marketing technique and skills.
That's been an interesting relationship, the campus and the event. Been good and bad, like all things. I don't think we're saying anything bad. Sometimes people don't quite understand the relationship between the Relays, almost an entrepreneurial event, and then the campus. So,
Who was the head grounds guy that worked for years?
Freddie.
Who?
Freddie.
Freddie.
Freddie
Freddie
Tarrant.
Tarrant.
I mean, in the 70s, we're talking about Ernie, is that in the Relays, I mean, he would be up here until 3 o'clock in the morning, be up here at 5 o'clock, relining. Some years they had, with the rains and the flood, they almost put the track on fire and to dry it out, and then had to remark it, so.
For me, we were talking about all those things, but I think for me it's always come down to is the people, the relationships that we had with all of these people, whether it be Freddie, the grounds guy, or Tom Tellez. The people that made it, that worked not only for Mt. SAC, but the sport of track and field and cross country to make it what it is. It was such a dedication of really, really good people, and it really it was kind of a small world when you really think about it. I was in Pico Rivera at El Rancho High School, and I had a guy that followed me around for 20 years, a guy named Bob Paholski. And Bob Paholski, I thought, had one of the greatest eyes in track and field. He could find something and tell somebody how to fix it immediately, and it was phenomenal. Well, he was roommates and a teammate with Tom Tellez. So the first time I go to Carl Lewis's jumping and had those great jumps at UCLA, we walk in and there's Tom Tellez, and Bob goes, "Hey Tom," and he goes, "Hey Bob, how you doing?" And my mouth kind of drops, and then Bob followed me to when I changed schools, and then he ended up helping at the Relays a few years, and he would run into those people. But it was always those people, whether it be Carl Lewis or Freddie, that worked so hard and loved the sport, but loved the school, loved each other to make this what was special. Because without the people, it's just an event. And we had some great, hard-working, dedicated, talented people. And I was in awe that my office mate for a whole bunch of years was an Olympic coach. I mean, who gets, and I mean, he did everything in track and field, and I'm just in awe that I'm sharing an office. And to me, what was most remarkable about my relationship there was I was trying to learn everything I could, but he was interested in what I thought. And I go, wow, that's really a forever learning. That's where I learned that you're never done what you can obtain knowledge from. That here's the guy that has done everything, and he kind of was interested in what I was doing, and it was just a whole world of eye-opening world. But it was the people that you worked with, and of course there's some rough edges to those sometimes, but it all got put aside for the better of the school and the sport or the team.
When he says rough edges, he's saying that maybe we argued a little bit or had some run-ins. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, we did.
I don't remember any arguments or run-ins particularly, though.
You don't remember many? I remember a couple.
I always thought we were a team. And towards the end, you said I retired. I really didn't retire when you got here. I kept coaching and so on and did the youth day stuff and everything. But we were always a team. And then when Rod became the head coach, when somebody else went someplace else or something, I know when we moved around positions without any hesitation or anything like that. I never thought of us as anybody was particularly a head coach or assistant coach or anything. I always thought that we were just coaches, a team working together. I ended up down the hammer throw ring and didn't get on the track much towards the end when I was doing the youth days part of it too and everything. But it was definitely a team effort on all you guys' parts. Really, that's what made it. I think you're right, Mike.
And I think, especially John and I would agree to this, Don Ruh was a benevolent dictator. Oh my gosh, Don Ruh, you moved in mysterious ways. We get a pole vault pit, and the school didn't authorize that, but Don Ruh got it.
You asked forgiveness, not permission.
There you go.
You asked forgiveness, not permission.
Well, I remember when John's first year, I don't know, I'm not the head coach. I had all these assistant coaches. We had Gail Watkins and some other people. Everybody knew what to do. I just had to schedule the bus, get the uniforms, hotel, where we're staying, meals. But the one thing I remember, one of the pole vaulters came over to me one practice and he said, "Coach, the pole vault pit is bottoming out." So I said, "What's that mean?" He said, "We're landing, we're only jumping 14, 15 feet. We're going to the bottom, hitting the ground." I said, "Damn, we can't have that for the relays." The relays was coming up. So I went to Eddie Hernandez. Remember Eddie Hernandez?
I don't. No.
He was a vice president in charge of community education at Building 4. And I said, "Eddie, I know all these high schools use the facility and stuff, but we got to get a brand new pole vault pit. We got to have a new pit for the relays." He says, "Well, go talk to Linda first, Linda Garrison, and see what we can do." Well, Linda said, "No, right off the bat, we don't have any money." I don't know what it cost, $6,000. It was expensive. What's a pit cost today?
Not $6,000. You can multiply that by 4 and you're getting close.
Okay, so I think it was much cheaper than it is today. So Linda said, no. And I said, "Eddie, we are negligent. I know that this pit is not safe. We can't have a pole vault competition in our dual meets if we don't have a pole vault." I said, "We got to have this pit." He said, "Okay, go figure out where we're going to get it, blah, blah, blah." I don't know who I went to, and we ordered a pit. To this day, I took the bill to Eddie, and I don't know who paid it. To this day, I took it to Eddie. I said, "Eddie, thank you. Now we can have meets. We're not liable. We did something about it." To this day, I swear to God, I don't know who paid it. I don't know who paid it. I don't know what he did with that.
But see, that's part of the relationships again.
Yeah.
And at that point, Ed was the administrator in charge.
Yeah, Eddie was a good guy. And
So they probably paid out
He paid it somehow.
community services.
But we got that pit.
Really good
were gonna
relationship
say
with Pacer Products. Pacer used to test all of their new equipment with us. Did a good job, so we got a lot of, remember, from the bales of hay around the sawdust pit out in the back to some of the best equipment in the world, thanks to Pacer Products.
And you know what? I was here at the time How did you get that first all-weather track?
When did we get it?
No, how did you get it? I know when we got it, but you know that was something that wasn't in the budget that I know of. You know,
It was kind of a show for a new company. I forgot the name of the company now, but part of the reason they put the track in is because they wanted us to be a showplace for their product.
it's the same people that you work with.
Was it Recordtan at that time?
No. The people who took for Recordtan. Who was the people before Recordtan?
You mean our company now?
Yeah.
No.
The company,
Oh yeah.
they stayed with us a long time.
Yeah, it was a while ago. I don't remember.
And they
but
stayed with us a long time.
It was bulletproof. It was a great track. That was 3 surfaces ago. Hey, we're gonna wrap this up a little bit, but I want to kind of end on one thing, because you alluded to Dan Schrum bringing me over and saying some nice things about me, and you know I've always been grateful for that, and you know I was thankful for him, and then I was thankful too that when I was sitting in that office, you know, that I had Don still around. I had John, and I probably spent half my salary taking him to lunch every day, trying to pick his brain on cross country and make sure things were going well. I had Rod, sometimes contentiously, he and I on my back, let's keep those athletes in there and that. And then, you know, I had you too, walking into my office sometimes saying, Coach Todd, I don't want to get in your business, but, you know, and then you'd proceed to get in my business, you know, but those were all helpful. And then when Mike came on board full time, I mean, there's a lot of times he'd say, Doug, I don't know, maybe you should rethink that, you know, and sometimes I did, thankfully, and sometimes I didn't to my great, you know, mistake. But, you know, I've had a lot of people around surrounding, and then, you know, the Relays office, all the people worked up there for so many years, and, you know, a family that was very supportive of me. So I have a lot of people I'm thankful for, but how about you guys? I mean, anybody that, you know, we're on video here, we're opportunity maybe to say thanks to somebody. They don't even have to be around anymore, but just curious.
You know, something we forgot and should never forget is our relay secretaries. They have been so great. We got a couple here this morning, but I tell you, we couldn't have got along without those secretaries. They were
There's
super.
not a doubt in anyone's mind.
Marie Schrock,
This is going to sound sexist, and I don't mean it that way. Because I mean it in a very positive way. Those ladies were the backbone of the Relays. We did things conceptually. They did things actually. You know what I mean?
That's a great line.
They made it. They made it work. And another thing that is kept. Just think about this. We have a direct line to Hilmer Lodge. Between all of us, there's just been a direct line. You know, you and John and I, when I first got there, Hilmer was a part of us. And then we moved on, and you know, Rod came in, and all the rest of it. But we had that connection to Hilmer.
I don't want to forget 2 other people too. Your wife and my wife.
No argument.
Janet, volunteering all those years too, behind the scenes, but they deserve a great deal of credit.
A lot of weekends, huh? Taking dollar entry fee in those all-comer meets, you know? Taking the abuse and the hassle of the coaches. $1, I gotta pay $1 to come in here? Yeah, you do.
You asked the question before we started, and we didn't answer that question about this facility.
Yeah.
Not just this facility, but the whole thing.
Yeah. How did we get here? Did we ever expect this?
When I went into academic counseling, I had a different relationship. I didn't know who the president was, but I had a relationship with him because he wanted to know if we were doing the right thing academically for our students. And I went up to him before I retired and thanked him for his support with starting the Academic Support Center, 3C4A, and the National. And I had a travel budget trying to promote community colleges. And I asked him, Bill Scroggins, and I said, I know all the flack you took about spending $200+ million on an athletic facility when the faculty was giving you all a bunch of crap. We need new this and new that. And they got new stuff over there. I see buildings going up. And I said, why did you put your neck out for athletics to give us what we have? And he said, it's a reward for all the years that you put Mount SAC on the map. That's what, and he wasn't even here.
Yeah.
Jack Randall was the guy that was
Jack
president
Randall,
when you,
yeah. And Scroggins wasn't even here, but he knew what the relays meant to this college. And he said, it's a reward for all the work you've done in the past.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't know if he told many people that, but I asked him point blank and he told me.
But you look at all the track and cross-country programs at community college across the state. There's no program that had the continued success that we've had at Mount SAC. Even when I remember when I retired and I showed you that we had trophies, first, second, or third, from since 1978. We probably even has that since today, that we've either crossed first, second, or third, either men or women's cross-country or men and women's track in the state meet, which is a phenomenal achievement, I think.
No pressure on the current coaches, Gio, Lenaro, and Jennifer. None at all.
They kept the tradition, and that's what they have to remember.
Yeah.
The tradition is tremendous. I'm big on tradition. You got some big shoes to fill, you know. And,
You're looking at the people behind me, not me.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Those young people out there.
I've done
you know,
my time.
And you got this new facility, and we won the state men and women track this year.
They're taking
That's
care of business.
expected
That's it.
every year.
Mike, we're gonna wrap up, but Mike, you've been a little quiet, but every time you say something, it's been gold. So why don't you wrap us up here? Is there
Pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think maybe to wrap up is like the people behind us, Jenna and Gio, that I think they know that we're still dedicated to the success and that we're all there to help them. And I think they know that. And I think that's the tradition that I inherited, but I think they know it too. And we're all still around at all the events and still moving hurdles, still doing, we're not afraid to help them because what was given to us and to keep that moving forward and that tradition that of those 1, 2, 3 to keep going, that's not something we've given up. It's something that we want to continue the success of the school.
We'll always be recruiting for them.
You know, you look at it, Doug, you look at this group here, all the coaches started from Hilmer Lodge all the way through. We came to Mount SAC and we stayed.
Yeah.
We didn't go on we could have gone on, Don could have gone on, you could have gone, Ernie could have gone on to a 4-year school, big university, but we were so dedicated and so committed to Mount SAC, and I think that's why we're successful, is because we committed ourselves to it and hope that the future generations feel the same kind of tradition that we did.
You know, I came from Bakersfield. I was not a Southern Cal guy, so I was from up north and small little town that most people have probably stopped on the way to go somewhere else. And,
I was born there.
Go to the bathroom. And then I went to Bakersfield. That was the closest college, and that was over 200 miles away. And they had a very well-known coach, Covey. And when I got hired at Mount SAC, he goes, I think he knew more about it than I did. And a couple years later, he asked me if I was bleeding maroon. And I go, probably I am, Bob, but.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, guys, I think that's going to end it for now. Thank you. Appreciate you making the time.
well, let me, before we go, no, your last word, but you know, that guy right over there, he's the man. He guided us in this direction, and we've all kept going. I've been involved with the relays now since 1960, where we established that before, 66, 67, and still involved. And I think that's the key to our success.
No, you guys are the key. I don't care what you say.
The
People
key
like
right
you-
now is going to be that guy. We made a big mistake, and I went to Manuel Bacher, board of trustees, and he talked to you. I said, we cannot lose Doug Todd. And I guess it didn't work out. You decided to retire. If you don't, I don't know who's taking your place. You know, it's just like when these guys left, we had people behind them that we learned from them.
And I think that's the
But I don't know
situation.
who's been watching.
I think we're going to be in great shape.
It's going to be.
Yeah, I do, and I think with this core to help and assist and offer support like we've all had from others, I think the future of the relays is strong. Cross country invite's strong. I hear what you're saying, but I'm confident
I hope
we're
that
going
you
to
stay a
continue.
mentor, whoever it is.
I ain't going anywhere. You guys
Sum it
aren't
up.
either.
To sum it up, we've all been blessed by being part of Mount SAC and each other.
Yes, we have.
Amen.
No question about that.
Best two-year college in the world.
And I think Mount SAC has been blessed because of people like Don.
That's it. All right, guys, we got to end. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.